All right, back at you with another episode of C Rod's Tell Me Your Story podcast. I'm your host, C Rod. Let me tell you a story. This story takes place back in 1989 in a Russian hospital in the city of Stalingrad. In this hospital, a mother took her infant child over a stomach virus. After a week or so, the child was better, but the hospital would not let the mother go. They kept her there against her will and forced medications upon her child. In order to escape, she put her child out of a window and fled through the hospital halls in order to gain hers and her child's freedom once more. This is the story of that child that we bring you today. This is the story of Agin Kazbai. All right, back at you with another episode of C Rod's Tell Me Your Story podcast. I'm your host, C Rod, and today I'm with Agin Kazbai.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we were just talking off camera, and before we get into your story, we were just talking off camera, and I guess this does have to do with your story. Your name isn't even Agin.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just the easier way for people to say it.
Yeah, but if you asked anybody and where you're from here in America, and all your friends and that you know, they would know you as Agin,
Yeah, everybody.
right?
Yeah.
So what is the correct pronunciation of your real name?
Agin Kazbai. Yeah, it's hard for, people from America or anywhere else
Yeah,
for them to pronounce that, so I kind of changed it up a little bit when I moved here. So it's easier for people to pronounce it.
so I think that a lot of because your language is similar to pronunciation as Russian, correct?
Some of it, yeah, partly a little bit.
Some of it, well, when I say that, it's like that region of the world, you use a lot more of your tongue, or
Yeah.
right? Is that
Roll your R's a lot,
yeah?
So, I mean, Hispanic people can pronounce my name pretty good. Some of the ones I've worked with, they've asked me, like,
What are you
how do you...
trying to say? Yeah, my mother is Hispanic.
Oh, I bet she can pronounce my name for sure.
You think so?
For sure, yeah.
Oh, when she gets here, we'll ask her.
Okay.
Um, so Agin is actually one of the top media production people here in Denver, and since we're kind of in the same thing, I linked up with him, and we've been talking about things for a while, and he was telling me a little bit about his story, and it's unbelievable. And when I hear his story, and the reason that I really wanted to share his story with y'all is nowadays you kind of hear people, rag on where they're from, and think about, how bad they got it here. But there's always somewhere worse than where you're at, and sometimes it's good to hear that from someone who's actually dealt with that. So everybody listening today, I just hope that after you hear today's story, that you maybe appreciate where you're from a little bit more. And if where you're from's the same as where he's from, you're welcome to come over here to where he is now and where we're from. But with that being said, where are you from, Agin?
I'm from Kalsari, Kazakhstan, by the Caspian Sea. So it's like more of like a deserty area, a lot of Kazakhstan is a lot of mountains. People might look it up and see a lot of mountains, beautiful places, but I'm more from like a village part of the country.
Is there like when I hear desert, I think of cactus and stuff.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's just more of, flat ground, a lot of sand, you know what I mean? But you don't see anything like that.
We over there, you say desert, so we're talking about extreme heat.
Yeah, it's extremely hot during the
Have you
summer.
been around the south here, or
No,
where
I
are you?
have I
No.
haven't. No, I
Uh,
mean, what I could compare it to is kind of like when you go to Vegas at its
uh,
hottest point.
yeah, yeah.
It's like that. Sometimes it's even hotter. You know what I mean? But during the winter, it's completely different. It's extremely cold.
Oh,
Yeah, so
wow.
you kind of experience.
Does it snow?
Yeah, it snows a lot.
What?
Yeah, it's brutal. Yeah,
So you go from hot because Vegas don't snow.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure Vegas don't snow. If you're from Vegas, let us know. But I'm pretty sure Vegas doesn't snow. So you're going from extremely hot hundreds
Hundreds for sure, over hundreds. You know,
and
I've seen like 120 type stuff.
what
It's
the
brutal.
120?
Yeah,
What the?
yeah, it's crazy. It's difficult for sure.
Dude, that's hot as heck. Is it humid?
It's no, it's not really human.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, so
That'd be too much.
yeah, it would be ridiculous.
Well, is it for some reason when you're telling me this in my mind, I'm kind of thinking of like I see a like a desert landscape, um, maybe some camels running around, and I see like a scorpion on a rock.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not that type of desert.
No.
You know what I mean? But you do see camels everywhere. You
Oh,
know,
really?
you might be walking down the street and the camel's walking right next to you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, um,
So where were you born? Is that where you were born? What city?
well, I'm from Kalsari, like I mentioned, but I was actually born in Stalingrad, Russia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
A lot of history in that city.
yeah, definitely a lot of history. I never really realized it until, I got older and kind of learned more about the world wars and everything. And, there's been movies where, it mentions Stalingrad and everything. So just looking back at it, it's pretty crazy to think about.
It is. So, what was your mother doing in Russia?
She was, I mean, at the time, she was, her husband at the time was working over there. So they spent a lot of time over there. And then, probably moved away when I was maybe close to 1 years old, moved back to Kazakhstan.
Wow, so you're in Russia for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So when we were talking previously, off camera, you had some kind of sickness as a child, or what were you telling me previously?
Yeah, when I was about 10 months old, for some reason, like, I had some kind of a stomach issue, so my mom took me to the hospital just to get it checked out and everything. But, I mean, it went away after, like, a week or so,
Oh,
But, yeah, I was in the hospital for a few weeks, I mean, even after I was better, you know what I mean? They still kept me in there and kept my mom in there.
yeah.
So
Yeah, you were telling me that. Can you unpack that a little bit and tell us a little bit about that?
yeah, so when they brought me into the hospital, they started, giving me all kinds of medication, and they would take me from my mom without telling her anything. They would come grab me, and take me somewhere, another room, and then, they would give me like these shots, who knows if it's vaccines or I don't know. You know what I mean? My mom didn't even know. And I mean, there was, a lot of other women in there with their kids. She would see them come get their kids. Some of them wouldn't even bring them back, but I was able to, stay with my mom the whole time I was there, but they would just come grab me. And, my mom started noticing, like, she would start inspecting my body, like, see if they did anything, and she started noticing that, like, either my hand or my leg would be swollen, and she could
Wow.
see that, they gave me some kind of a shot and everything like that. um so she was pretty tripped out about it. One of the times when they brought me back, she couldn't see any uh shots or anything like that on me. Nothing was swollen until she, kind of brushed my hair back a little bit and noticed, I had one on top of my head. So, and
And you're in the temple area.
yeah. So that, terrified her pretty bad because she didn't know. Who knows, next time they might not even bring me back, you know what I mean? So um she she was in a room with another lady who had her child there as well, and she would tell my mom like, hey, some of these kids aren't even coming back to their moms, so you got to do what
Jesus.
you can to get out of here, you know what I mean? Your kid's better, he's not having any stomach issues, who knows what they're doing, so you got to do what you can to get out.
Was she? Were y'all there at the hospital 24/7? And
Yeah.
she was being held there as well?
Yeah, she was being held there. I mean, like, she could not leave, and over there you can't just be like, hey, I'm leaving. I don't need no help,
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, you can't do that. So they just kept her in there, so.
So just to get this, so that everybody's listening, just to get this clear, your mother, what year were you born?
89.
So in 1989, your mother's in, and how do you pronounce the city in Russia again?
Stalingrad.
So your mother's in Stalingrad.
Yeah.
In 1989, and you get sick. You said a stomach virus, right?
Yeah.
And so she just takes you to the doctor, to the hospital for us. What's a lot of kids get sick from stomach viruses. I have 3 kids of my own. There's been many times where I had to take them to the doctor because they had some exorcist diarrhea or something. So she takes you to the doctor, and you're in there you're sick for about a week, correct?
Yeah.
About a week,
I was
week
sick
and a
for
half.
yep.
And then so after you're sick for about a week, week and a half, you're better, but the authorities there say no, you still have to stay here. And they put you, is it one room or one wing of the hospital for designated it for multiple people?
Yeah, so she was in there with a couple other people, yeah. Yep.
And were all these people the same, from the same place? Like, how would you say it? Kazan?
Kazakhstan?
Yeah.
No, I mean they're in Russia, so there's probably Russian women in there. Like she mentioned, she was with somebody in the room from Armenia.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then so after you're in there, they start taking you away and other children away and bringing you back with shots.
Exactly.
Like they're experimenting on you or something, like who knows what they were shooting you up with. They didn't tell you. We don't know to this day, correct?
Correct.
Wow. And so your mother's in there. She talks to the Armenian lady, and the Armenian lady tells her, listen, some of these kids, they're not even coming back. And your mother's like, what? And she decides then that she needs to get out of there.
Yeah, exactly. She she knew that she had to start doing something, you know what I mean? They would let them out, to go outside, kind of freshen up, you know what I mean? But, it's pretty secure place, so one of the days when she decided she was going to make the move finally, she put me outside the window of the hospital, and she just, put her jacket on and everything, put all her things in her little bag that she had, and then just walked outside, and she mentioned that even when she was walking outside, like the nurses there were like, what is this woman doing? Like she's got her bag and stuff, and she was just able to walk out, and just, she said that she like hid behind one of the trees outside and just took off the hospital gowns and everything like that and put her clothes on and just grabbed me and just took off.
When you say she put you out the window,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
She at the time, her husband, he came to outside the window, and she just handed me to him, and then was able to gather her things as soon as possible and just get out of there.
Do you remember how old you were and how long this took place for?
Yeah, I was about 10 months at that time. So, I mean, these are the stories from my mom,
Yeah. And
you
how
know,
long were you in the hospital? They hold you in the hospital?
about a few weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was there for a good amount of time, but, I felt better, you know what I mean, right away after I got there, and they gave me some medication. So,
Wow, that's crazy that you're even here then.
it's pretty wild.
Yeah. Smuggled out of a Russian hospital at 10 months years of age. Um, the adrenaline that your mother was probably feeling that day walking through to the hospital. You could almost make it a scene in a movie. Yeah.
Exactly, you could, I always think about it like, she was only 19 years old, you know what I mean?
Wow.
So it's difficult to think about.
She was very, very young.
She
Very,
was.
very young. She takes you from 19 years old. That's how old when this is all going on.
Yeah.
Wow, that's just a kid. So she takes you from 19 years old, smuggles you out of this Russian hospital, gives you to her husband at the time, and she meets him outside, changes the clothes behind the tree. They flee the hospital, and then what happens?
And then they just, go back to living their normal life there for a little bit. And I'm not exactly sure how much longer they stayed over there, but they ended up moving back to our hometown in Kazakhstan. So, and that's kind of where
That's where
life started.
that's how as far as back as my SD card goes. So, what kind of a kid were you then over there?
I mean, I was a pretty good kid, pretty mellow kid. I grew up at my grandparents' house, so just growing up and just being around my grandma all the time, she would always make sure myself and one of my cousins, who's a few years younger than me, she raised both of us, and she always, would tell us, be nice, you know what I mean, be a good kid, even though we would be outside like doing crazy things, you know what I mean. Compared to the rest of my cousins, me and him are pretty similar, laid back, you know what I mean. The rest of my cousins are pretty wild.
How many cousins lived there at your grandmother's house?
It was always different, because we just go from house to house, around that time, there was five of us, and it was all five boys at first, you know what I mean. My mom has uh, five siblings,
Yeah.
so all the kids that were born, were all boys at first, you know. So we were pretty wild, you know what I mean. Um, just being influenced by people from outside, because you're outside all the time, people are working, grandma can't keep an eye on everybody, you know what I mean. And they always knew that we'd be safe, we'd be hanging out with the kids in the neighborhood, but at the same time they never really knew some of the things that was going on, or the type of stuff we'd be doing out there, and yeah, it was definitely a good time. It was
Are all five of
difficult at the
y'all?
time.
Are all five of y'all the close to age?
Yeah, all five of us are close to age. So I have an older cousin. He's 2 years older than me. Then after I was born, 2 years later, there was another one, and a year later, two more. And all boys and always outside.
Running the streets.
Oh yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, that actually, believe it or not, it used to be like that here. You would actually see kids playing outside. It was probably like
Exactly.
that when you were younger here.
Right.
That was kind of similar. And another similar thing about here in America is there's a lot of grandparents raising their kids here too. So that's another similarity right there. Might be where they end, but That is a couple of things that I noticed when you're telling me. So you're all at your grandmother's house. You and your all your cousins, and y'all all running the streets. And so tell me, what kind of stuff were y'all doing?
Man, we would just mostly, we would just hang out with the kids in the neighborhood, play soccer, just run around at the same time. Once we started getting a little bit older, we'd be smoking cigarettes, trying out beer, like, because we just see older people in the streets drinking, and, we'd be like, hey, let's try this, just being stupid kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You have
So,
any stories? Do you remember from when you were those days?
yeah, I mean, I do remember when me and my older cousin, we started smoking cigarettes.
How
I
did
think
that happen?
it was, I don't know, we would just, because over there's no age where you can't buy things like that,
So
you
you
know.
bought them?
So we would, like, any change we had, we'd just go buy like one cigarette, not even a pack, just
How old
one.
were you?
I would say I was probably around maybe 8 years old.
So you would go buy a pack of cigarettes at 8 years old?
Yeah, we go buy them, because a lot of times people send their kids, or,
Yeah.
and be like, hey, go, here's money, go get me a pack of cigarettes or whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Your uncle might send you, or, so the stores, they get used to that, and there's no law against it. So, after we get out of school, or we just go run around, me and my older cousin, we would just go buy one and just
Yeah.
smoke. But I still remember the day that, we got caught,
Oh, who caught
yeah.
you?
My mom's older brother, my uncle, he
Oh
caught
no.
me. I just remember him walking in the house and just saying, hey, come here, So I walked up to him, and he's like, smelt my breath and kind of smelt my clothes. He's like, you've been smoking cigarettes, and I got scared, you know what I mean? So, and he even showed me the cigarettes,
Oh no.
Yeah, and he would ask me, where'd you get it? How did you get it? You know what I mean?
How
And
did he? How did he find? How did he know? Or do you know how
he,
that happened?
I think, my my other uncle, he wasn't around at the time, maybe, so, and nobody else smokes but him. So my older uncle, he was like, who's smoking, you know what I mean? Found the cigarette butts and just came home and just cussed me out. And when he asked me where I got it from, I was a kid, so I blamed my older cousin.
You lied?
Yeah, I was like, my my cousin's the one that got it, and yeah, we were smoking together and everything. And then he cussed out my cousin, and my cousin kicked my ass that day brutally.
This is your mom's brother?
Yeah, my mom's older brother. Yeah.
So that brings me kind of into my next question. What was your family like?
My family was, very, cultural, family oriented. We would spend a lot of time together. Everybody, nobody like really lived too far away from each other. So you might wake up in the morning, and your uncles, your aunts, their kids are just showing up. You know what I mean? And we, have good family times together, eat,
Yeah.
My grandma had a pretty big garden, you know what I mean? So all the kids would be going and getting whatever fruit we wanted, apricots, strawberries. So my family was very, very close together, and it's still that way,
Nice.
They still spend a lot of time together. I mean, I haven't seen them in probably about 5 years now, pretty close.
Wow.
Yeah. So I definitely miss them, and wish I had some family here to.
Do you talk to them? Over
Yeah,
the
I
phone?
talk to them all the time,
Oh.
over the phone or video calls, anything like that. So we
They
we
ask
stay
you
in
what's it
touch.
like in America?
Oh, they've been asking me that all the time. They um they wish that they can live here. A couple of my cousins have came out here to visit. And they just right away were saying, you're lucky. I wish I was living here. I want to stay here. So, um,
what kind of I kind of know a little bit because I've been to Mexico and stuff, but what kind of you're here in America, you have a certain thought or vision of what America is. When you're in another country or from another country, what kind of image or thought do you have of America before you come here?
At first, I didn't even want to come here. When my mom told me we
Oh,
were
wow.
moving, yeah, I was terrified. I
Why?
didn't know any English, nothing. So I was extremely scared and just I didn't know how I was gonna learn English. I was really worried. At the time I was 12 years old, so I just, man, I was terrified, and at the same time I didn't want to leave my grandma.
What did you think you were? So when I ask you that, I mean, like, when I think of Europe or France, I think of, people wearing bonnets on their neck, or, wee wee with cigarettes and uh, baguettes and stuff.
Right.
That's what I envision when I think of France. When you're in Kazakhstan and you think of America, what do you think of? Hot dogs.
No, I didn't really think about the food at the time. I definitely thought about, bigger cities, the things you see in the movies, you know what I mean? A lot of cowboys and things like that. Just the stuff you see in movies, I didn't really know what to expect, you know. I thought I'd be coming here into possibly like a big city, or I didn't know, you know what I mean? But I ended up in a town in Wyoming at first when I
What
first
town
moved
is
here.
that?
Evanston, Wyoming.
Oh,
That's where I ended up, and I went to middle school and high school there before I started, going my own way and going other places. But yeah, I still remember when I first got there, I was, I didn't. I was like, man, this is a pretty small town, because, I went from a town of close to 100,000 people to 20,000.
oh, you
You
went to the
know,
Boondocks.
yeah,
You went
um,
to the country.
yeah, exactly.
Country town.
But yeah, it was. I mean, it was good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
I get it. So before we get to that, um, so your mom moves back to where your hometown. You're growing up with your cousins. Y'all running the streets. Um, you and your cousin are buying and smoking cigarettes. 7, 8 years old. Um, tell me, what was it like? Going to school over there, and what were some of the differences, and um, what was that experience like?
it was a big difference for sure.
All right, back at you with another episode of C Rod's Tell Me Your Story podcast. I'm sitting here with my guest, Agin Kazbai, and he's telling us about his journey here to Colorado from
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. And just before we get back into that, I just want to remind you to click the links below, check out our Etsy t-shirt shop, check out our eBay card shop, and check out our Patreon. If you like this content, we have full uncut videos. You can also get early access and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. Make sure you click the link below to check it out, though. And always make sure you like and subscribe. Any support to the channel that we can get is very, very helpful. We want to bring you the best stories that we can. And unfortunately, that comes at a budget. So we have to help pay for all this stuff. So make sure you click the link below and help support the channel. So, Agin, what I was asking you before, and before we went to our break, was so you're growing up with your grandma. There's 5 of y'all cousins running in the streets. You tell me about before you got caught smoking cigarettes at 8 years old, because you could just buy cigarettes at 8 years old over there. And So you're running around. Um, what was it like going to school over there? Tell me about that experience.
Going to school there was pretty difficult. It might have been easier for other kids, but for me, I always thought it was pretty hard. You know,
Yeah.
you pretty much you go to school. You're in the same class with the same people from the time you're in first grade until you graduate. So you don't go from class to class. You stay in one classroom and the teachers come. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So if math teacher will come at a certain time, teach math, leave, then history teacher will come,
wow.
so you go to school with the same people, you know what I mean? But
How long? How many years does it take to graduate school?
I believe 11th grade or something like that. It's more different than here. Over there you could, go to college when you're 15, 16 years old. You finish like ninth grade, 10th grade, and then you go straight to college. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So a lot of people do that. A lot of people finish out high school and everything. So it just kind of depends on the opportunities they might have. Um, so yeah, it's definitely different. But um, at the same time, you kind of learn a lot. From just experiencing a different type of education system. But
it sounds pretty. I mean, I don't know. I think that sounds pretty cool to be that if you do actually have the same people with you the whole time, maybe the same teacher the whole time, depending on how qualified the teacher is.
exactly.
That doesn't sound so bad to me.
No, it's not too bad, and you end up being friends with those same kids, pretty much your whole life. You know what I mean? To this day, I talk to my classmates from the
Really?
time I was in
Wow.
second grade. You know what I mean?
That's
So
crazy.
it's pretty cool. We all talk to each other still, but at the same time, when you're young, you might not like each other, or
Oh
you know
wow.
what I mean. So it's some of them kind of you don't talk to, but mostly everybody stays pretty close. You know, but it was a good experience.
And I remember you. So they still discipline their kids.
Oh, they do. Yes,
Tell us about
it's
that.
uh, it's pretty brutal. You know what I mean? Your teachers are able to, beat you, smack you, anything, and you don't just go home and tell your parents like, "Oh, my teacher slapped me today," so they're gonna ask you, "What'd you do?" You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I remember, getting hit a lot at school. Even there might be times you don't even do nothing. They might be walking by you and they'll just, if you're not studying or you're not reading or whatever, they'll just hit you in the back of the head like, "Bah," or smack you. And in our class, our teacher, she had a really long stick. She would carry that throughout the whole school. She would take it home with her, like she would, and she was a short lady, and she kind of looked like a little penguin, So all the boys in my class, we would call her Penguin, not in front of her or anything like that. You know what I mean? We'd just be messing around with each other, and I remember one time all the girls, in our class told the teacher, and she made every single, boy in the class stand in front of the board, and she just came with her stick and just hit you with it everywhere. Like might be in the chest, your
Oh man.
thighs, or yeah.
How many times?
Oh, a few times, good times too. Like, and it was painful. It was painful. I've seen some kids like get brutally beat. You know what I
Oh
mean? But
wow, that's
I mean,
crazy.
it's been going on for years and generations. It's normal. I'm at this time. I'm not sure if it's like that anymore. Who knows? But yeah, around those times it was pretty crazy, and
Wow.
yeah, it was a crazy experience.
And so you living with your grandmother. Where is your parents?
When I was living with my grandmother, my mom, she would work like month or 2 months at a time. she would do drafting, drafting for oil fields, you know. So my mom actually took care of my grandparents, her siblings. Yeah, my mom worked very, very hard, at a young age. And there was a lot of times, I didn't really get to see my mom very much,
So
So it was,
she's doing. So I don't know if it's similar, but um, in South Texas, growing up, I remember sometimes people would go away on the go work for the oil, whatever they were doing on it. We'll just say the oil rig. We'd always call it the oil fields, or
right.
I believe we would call it the oil fields. But you would always hear people say, "Where's so and so? Oh, he's working in the oil fields. He works 2 months, like maybe your mom, and he's back for maybe 2 weeks, and then he's gone for 2 months." Is this something similar?
Yeah, it's pretty similar, very similar. And, where we're from, there's not too many jobs, you know what I mean? So you do have to work out of town or somewhere like that. And, a lot of families experience that.
Yeah, I know what that. I know quite well what that's like. So you're staying at grandma's. She's going out of town and working to help support your family. There's not a lot of opportunities there. Y'all are running the streets. At some point, she moves you from your grandmother's house, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I've lived with my uncles, aunts, you know what I mean? But for a while, I did move away. My mom, divorced her ex-husband. He was actually killed,
Wow.
so he got killed. He was stabbed to death,
What the?
Yeah, so
What do you know about that?
not too much. What I know is that, he people stole some things from his family members or in some sort, so he went to approach these people who stole the stuff, you know what I mean, to try to get it back. And he was stabbed to death by
him.
those guys. And somebody found him just, early in the morning, just walking by, found the guy just laying there,
Jesus
in his own blood. So yeah, brutal.
So then you go from you're at for, you say you've lived a lot of places. So just to kind of get into that, you live with your grandma. Do you remember who you lived with after your grandma?
After that, I kind of, like I said, live with my uncle.
Did you
my
move
aunts.
away from your grandpa after your?
Yeah, I did. After so many years, my mom got remarried. So once she got remarried, we went to go live with him and his family, and they lived in a completely different city, pretty far away. Maybe probably more than 12 hours away or something like that.
Jesus.
Yeah, so around the age I was maybe close to 7 is when I moved over there. My mom had my sister, and my mom was still working a lot too, so I was living with his parents, you know what I mean? And he would also work. They worked at the same place, so he'd be gone month and a half. She'd be gone month and a half. You know what I mean?
So your mom had a sister. You have a sister.
Yeah.
Is she with your mom remarries and has a daughter?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so you're staying at your grandmother's house, because your mother's husband is murdered, and so you're staying at your grandma's house while your mother's working on the oil fields, and then your mother eventually remarries and has your little sister, and then she says, okay, it's time to move away from your grandma's house. We're gonna go move with my husband's family, which that doesn't sound out of the norm,
Exactly.
I'm gonna go move with my husband's family, and it's 12 hours away from where you grew up, and it's in a bigger city, or same, or
It's probably about the same size. Actually, it might even be smaller.
Okay.
Probably much smaller. And I'm not exactly sure how far away. If it's 12 hours, 8 hours,
Just
but
a
it was
guess.
pretty far away.
It's far. It's far as
Yes.
hell. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what was that experience like, going and moving in with the new family? That got to be something different.
Yeah, for me it was pretty hard, because at the time I just got so used to being around my own family, very large family, and to being with, just his parents, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Not too much of my family. I can't spend time with my cousins. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty crazy experience, and because my mom's gone all the time. You know what I mean. It was kind of hard, and his I felt like his parents didn't really like me. I'm not their blood. You know what I mean. So
Yeah.
the grandfather was pretty mean. Hard person, and his mom was a really bad alcoholic.
Mm.
So they're taking care of me and my sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I still remember like what their apartment looks like, how it was set up, and everything.
Oh wow.
I was never inside the house too much. They didn't pay attention to me, so I would just leave all the time, and I was always never felt welcome.
Yeah.
So I was kind of scared of being people who were alcoholics.
No. Yeah.
My
Bet.
grandfather, my mom's dad, was a pretty bad alcoholic, so it was always hard seeing things like that.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time in the streets by myself. Um, Basically, learn how to survive on my own for quite a period of time, couple of months, 3 months, or something like that. Just being outside.
Wow.
It was I was always scared to come back inside the house. So there were a lot of nights where I would sleep outside. You know what I mean? At
Wow.
7 years old, and
Oh God.
just looking back at it, like it's pretty crazy, man. Like I don't want people to feel bad for me or have any. I don't need no sympathy or nothing like that. But just seeing my friends' kids at that age, and just seeing them playing around and not worrying about nothing, and just me looking back at that, I'm like, man, it's pretty insane, like.
It's very. That's 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 pretty. That's pretty heavy. So you move into uh your mother's husband's parents' house, which would be your sister's grandparents, and your sister's a baby, I assume. And they say, "Who's all? How many people are in the house?"
Um,
Or it's an apartment, you said,
it's
right?
an apartment on the fifth floor, two-bedroom apartment. Basically, his parents, him, my little sister, me, and my mom. So basically, 5, 6 people. You know what I
And
mean?
so she's still working in the oil. He works in the oil fields with her.
Yeah.
So they leave out of town for 2 months, and he leaves his daughter and his stepson with his parents.
Right. Right.
And the mother, his mother is a raging alcoholic, and his father is a very mean, cruel man. And you're there, but they're just accepting you there because your sister's their granddaughter. So you're just kind of accepted there, but you never feel welcomed. They're never nice to you, um, and so you're like, screw this, I'm out of here. So every day you take off, and uh, no one goes and looks for you, and you're sleeping on the streets. And where were you sleeping?
Different places, at the park or on the bench in the front. You know what I mean? I
Wow.
I don't know. I remember being scared. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I felt like I was more scared to go inside the house. You know what I mean? So um, I was kind of all over the place, and to be honest with you, like, man, I don't even I don't even know how nobody said nothing, or
Yeah.
how they wouldn't even come look for me or anything like that.
How would you see people? Would people walk by you or?
Yeah, I would see people all the time. Nobody would say nothing, but at the same time, when I would sleep at nighttime, I would try to be somewhere where not too many people were around because I was still like scared. Like, man,
Yeah.
there's some crazy people out here. Like, what could happen to me? And you know what I mean. Just learn to survive. You know what I mean.
When they saw you, did they ever say like, "Where you been?" or they never questioned or?
They would never really ask. You know what I mean, because the grandmother was just drunk all the time, nonstop. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Would be passed out or would be sitting there eating, and she would not say nothing. You know what I mean? So nobody really asked me any questions, honestly.
Man. And then when your mother would come back in town for her whatever week or two back, how would you know she would be there, or would you time it, or how
No,
would
I
that
would
go?
just I would kind of know around the time that I would count days. I would always count like, all right, in 1 month there's 28 days or 30 days. And I would like count, all the time.
You would know.
Yeah, and I would know. And I mean, I would come through the house a little bit, like walk in quietly and try to maybe grab some bread or something like that, because I was starving, a lot of times. So yeah, I do remember one time just coming into the house and just being like, man, I'm gonna grab a couple of pieces of bread and just go back outside. You know what I mean? And the bread was always on top of the fridge, so I put this chair in the front and. I still remember that same day too. It was just crazy. I got on the chair. I was starving. Wanted to grab a couple of pieces of bread, and all the bread was covered in mold. You know what I mean? And I don't even know how they were eating or how they were even taking care of my sister. You know what I mean?
God.
A little baby, like. So I still remember that smell of that mold, and I was just like. Left it, went back outside, and I met this kid out there too. Just being outside, and I think about him all the time. I don't know if he was older than me or if he was about the same age, but he was always outside too. So me and him we would go to like the market, where people sell food and everything, and we would steal watermelons all the time. We would steal watermelons, and there was this like abandoned like container not too far away. So we would go in there, break the watermelon, and just that's what we would eat all the time, But I remember this older guy, he caught us stealing, and came into the container and just beat our ass and told us, don't ever be stealing. Why are you stealing from these people? You know what I mean? And we're just kids, like, hungry. We're just sitting there, and he's like, well, eat. What you stole, eat it now. You know what I mean? Eat the watermelon. And we were, like, terrified. And he beat the other kid worse than me, so the other kid probably was a little bit older. But, yeah, that memory is just, it'll never leave my head,
That's
It's
crazy.
just randomly start thinking about it. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
memories like that, it sticks with you. You know what I mean? And it's pretty crazy. And a lot of times pain is like the realest thing you'll feel. You know what I mean? I mean, you might feel love from your family or whoever, but the pain side it's the realest. You'll never forget it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I agree. There's some people who can never get over stuff that's happened to them, and some of those are a lot of people you unfortunately see in the streets and maybe doing bad things to themselves or to other people because they've never been able to get over that stuff. So, just to recap a little bit, so you're living with your like, how would you say, step grandparents, I guess.
Yep.
And so you're living outside. How long was this going on for?
For a few months.
Wow.
Yeah, for a few months, and my mom had no idea what was going on.
Do did you tell her like, yo, this is what's going on, or were you scared to tell her, or are you just happy to see her? You don't want to bother her?
Yeah, I mean, I was always happy to see her, but you know, there's a lot of things that I kept quiet. You know, I just kept it to myself. Um, I don't know if I was worried about maybe getting in trouble that I was always outside, or you know, I don't know, man. I just was a from a younger age always kept anything that happened to me or anything that I see in the streets to myself. You know, I never wanted to talk to anybody about it.
Did she ever question you when she would come back? Because, you know, I know a little bit about this. And I do remember, like, maybe my clothes smelling, or I can remember being scarred, or maybe my hair being dirty, or having lice in my, having lice in my hair. Or did she ever question you when she came back, like, yo, what's going on here? What? And you just would ignore her?
No, those parts I don't really remember, honestly. You know, I don't remember those things. At the same time, you know, I think, I don't know, man. I just
being hungry overrides.
Yeah,
My clothes smelled.
I just
not, right?
yeah.
I was just wondering if she questioned you, or if how I was really trying to get to how much you were hiding from her. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you're just keeping things to yourself, basically. You're not letting her know what's going on, and then she turns around and leaves again. And then are you like, were you sad whenever she left?
Oh, that was
it's horrible.
those were like the saddest times. You know what I mean? Because I always wanted to, you know, be around my family all the time, especially my mom.
Well, especially if you're living in the streets. So you're going outside every day. You're being abused. You're hungry. You sneak inside the house one day to get bread, and the bread is just moldy, and the grandmother's drunk, and the grandfather's stern, and you're wondering to yourself, what's going on with my baby sister? You know, that's got to be a horrible feeling. You leave, you meet another kid, you know, maybe a little bit older than you, and y'all become like road dogs, you know, going through the slums and stealing food, and stealing watermelons, and going into this old container and eating them. And one day you get caught by a guy who wants to be some kind of civil, or send some kind of message to a starving kid about stealing, and that ingrains into your mind. And wow, so you don't know what happened to, what was his name?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
at the time I was 7 years old, so I don't even remember.
I remember.
Man, I wish I knew. You know what I mean? I wish it was somebody that I knew really well, and kind of, you know, talk about, you know what I mean, our times. Just
did y'all sleep? Do you remember sleeping in the streets with him, or
no? I don't. I don't think I ever. You know, I think he kind of went his own way. He probably was staying at home, or you know what I mean. But you know, at nighttime, I always remember being by myself. You know what I mean? Wow. There were times like I would try to go up, you know, and like I said, we lived on the 5th floor. So between those floors, you'll see, you know, people who are like in gangs or whatever, sitting there smoking, getting drunk. So I'd be walking up the stairs a couple of times and see people like that, and I'd be like, man, I can't go up there. So I walk back down and just be outside. And
man,
it was yeah, there was a lot of scary moments.
Yeah, it sounds like some projects around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. So your mother comes back. How does this situation, where it goes, what happens from there?
From there, I mean that went on for a while, but in between that time also, I was sent with, you know, his his mom to go take. They have animals like in the middle of nowhere, basically. You know what I mean? So I was sent with his mother to go take care of the animals.
Sent with
And
the alcoholic.
exactly, and I was there probably a whole summer. You know what I mean? A couple of months, and it was just like I said, middle of nowhere, pretty far away. They have goats and I think they had camels, cows, everything. And it's a mud hut in the middle of nowhere. So you live in a mud hut. You know what I mean? And it was one, and then they kind of had a neighbor a little bit across the way, but it's not a town or nothing. It's just in the middle of nowhere.
What do you mean by mud hut? Like just when I picture maybe a poorly constructed home.
Yeah, basically, out of mud, they'll build like these small, kind of like bricks almost. They look like bricks. They build those, and then they put it together into a small little, I guess a house, with a small little cooking area and just one little room. You know what I mean? And the floor is just basically the ground. You know what I mean? And extremely hot. You know what I mean? So you're in there, and the whole time, the whole time, his mom was like, kind of looked like a dead body just laying there all the time, just extremely drunk. Just I would walk in there and just see her, and she wouldn't even be moving. I would just kind of see like, hey, is she all right? She would just be laying there, and it just, like I said, like a dead person almost.
Looking into seeing a dead body.
Yeah.
And when she woke up, she would just drink until she passed out.
She would just drink until she passed out again. So, she wouldn't
Jesus
cook no
Christ.
food or nothing. So, like any bread that we had, that's what I would eat. Take care of the animals myself, give them water, do whatever I gotta do. Cause growing up with my own grandparents, that's what we grew up doing. At 4 or 5 years old, you're carrying water to the house in buckets, even if you can't lift it. We don't have no running water. So you go get water, and I kind of learned from all that. And it took I would say maybe a week or so for the lady who was living across, in another little mud hut, with her daughter, taking care of their own animals. She would always be looking around like, where's your grandma? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. I think she's drunk. You know what I mean?
Somewhere.
And she started noticing all that going on and me doing everything. So whenever she would cook food, she would always invite me. She'd be like, come on, So I would sit there with this lady and her daughter, and she would feed me. You know what I mean?
God.
But and I was there for a while, and I remember my stepdad coming one day, because you don't see no cars going by or nothing.
Yeah, he thought he's coming to get you.
Right? Yeah, I thought he was coming to get me, and when I saw his truck, I was super excited. Like, oh, I'm gonna go back to my mom. And he just came to bring supplies, some food, and then he left, and he made me stay there. And and my mom would be telling me, like, she was asking him, like, where's Agin? You know what I mean? How come you didn't bring him? And he'd be like, oh no, he wanted to stay there. He didn't want to come back. He's having a good time. You know what I mean? And yeah. And I was there for a couple of months, and it was pretty crazy, man. Just being in the middle of nowhere like that, and just
the desert.
Yeah.
What kind of animals were you taking care of?
Cows, goats, and I believe they had some camels as well. You know what I mean? So those are the animals, and I still remember like how, where they were and the way the house looked and everything. You know what I mean?
Remember like what a day for you was like out there?
Yeah, I mean, I would just wake up early in the morning when the sun's coming up, and I would know when they need grass or whatever.
Was she like a
Hay.
dead body on the floor already at that time?
She was, and I don't ever remember her ever coming out. You know
My
what I mean?
God.
Ever. So, maybe she came out to go use the bathroom or whatever, but all I remember is just her just laying there on the floor,
Drunk.
drunk, and so hot in there too, like, and it's like over 100 degrees.
Ain't no air conditioning, right?
Yeah, no air conditioning, and I just remember always walking around outside. And
so you get up at the break of dawn, and then you go outside and start tending the animals. You can remember that?
Yep.
Wow.
And towards the end of the day, the lady from across, she would give me some food and
Would
everything.
she go
like
look
that.
for you, or would you go look for
No,
her?
like, because there's nowhere to go. There's no trees, nothing around there.
Oh wow.
So if you kind of walk off in the distance, you could see somebody walking, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So towards the end of the night, she would always just call me over, and that was she would make some good food. You know what I mean?
I bet you it was good when you're starving. Starving to death, anything is
Yeah.
gonna be pretty good. So how did you get out of that situation, or how long did that go on for?
So it went on for a couple of months, and then he picked me up. After I don't even know how many times he came by, but I remember him picking me up, and then picking both of us up actually, and just going back to their apartment, and just remember just being outside again. You know what I mean?
God.
Over there, and one day one of their relatives actually, who would speak to my mom whenever they would see each other, she said she was hanging up her clothes on the balcony after she did some laundry, and she said it was like over 100 degrees, and she looked down and she's like, "Is that Agin?" You know what I mean?
What the heck's he
And,
doing
yeah,
out there?
and she said that I was like wearing like long sleeve little like hoodie or something like that. You know what I mean? Something long sleeve, and it's so hot outside, and she's like, "Come here, what are you doing down there?" And I still remember that day too, like going to her house, and she once my mom got back, she told her like, "Hey, I saw him outside," and like when she called me up to her house, actually, I guess the first thing I said was, "Do you have any bread?" You know what I mean? Because I was so hungry, and she saw that my entire body was pretty much infected from mosquito bites.
Jesus.
Yeah. So maybe that's why I was wearing the long sleeve shirts,
You're
because
infected with the
yeah.
mosquitoes are tearing it up.
So yeah. Then she gave me some bread and told me to go home. You know what I mean? And I just went home, and not too long after that, my mom came from work and saw my entire body just infected. I was extremely dirty, so she gave me a shower and everything like that, and started putting medication on all my mosquito bites.
Yeah.
And till this day I have some, scars from myself just scratching myself from those mosquito bites, and
The mosquitoes are probably hellacious over there.
yeah, it's bad. So that's what happened, and after that she just packed up the stuff, and then we moved back to where my grandma was at, where my family was at, and that was a happy moment for sure.
I bet you.
Being back with my own family, it was a good time.
Wow. So that was maybe a year. How long with that? It's pretty traumatizing.
Yeah,
Event.
I mean, probably a little bit under a year and everything like that, and yeah, it was. I just felt so lucky to go back to my grandma and everything, and till this day I feel bad that my mom she was just working so hard, trying to take care of the family. And all the money that she would get, she would give it to his parents, you know what I mean, to her husband. Like, here's all my money, because over there, that's kind of like how the culture is,
Yeah.
Women make some money, they're going to give it to their husband type stuff,
Wow.
even though they're all working and everything like that. And, yeah, so we went back home, and then they ended up moving into the same town that, my family.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and, he would, while my mom's at work, he would, try to come get, my sister or me, you know what I mean? And,
It's so you come back. So your mom comes home from work one day, and she catches your body's just ravaged with mosquito bites and infected. You still have scars from this day from those mosquitoes. And then the neighbor tells your mom, like, yo, I don't know what's going on, but they're not treating your son right. And she sees you haven't had a bath. She bathes you. She puts medicine all over your body. And at this point, does she leave her husband, or does she just leave with her husband to your hometown?
no, she left him
So
after
she
that.
leaves. She's like, you know what? Screw this. You're taking my money.
Yeah,
You're abusing my son. I'm out of here.
exactly.
So she takes off back to your hometown. So now, what's probably one of a glorious moment. Yeah, like, oh my God, this is finally over. So you take off back to your hometown with your grandmother, who loves you dearly, and all your cousins. They all miss you. You miss them. You get back, and at some point, he and his grandparents, his parents, is the drunk mother and the mean father, correct?
Right.
They moved back, and they moved to the same town, which is 8, 12. It's far,
Yeah.
away. They somehow end up there with you, and at times you're saying your mother's ex-husband was come and tried to take y'all. What do you mean?
He would just, come take us to his house, and
Yeah.
I guess try to, be with his daughter and everything, and I would always end up going where my sister goes, you know what I mean? And, there were a couple of times where, he took us, my mom was pretty angry with, her parents that they would let him,
Yeah.
take us and everything. And, there were times that, my mom would try to work it out with him and everything like that, but he was just, I don't know, he was a crazy guy, you know what I mean? Even though he might look like a nice guy and everything, but he would try to lie a lot,
Is he still alive?
He's alive, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, the last time me and my sister seen him was in 2009.
Okay.
One of the times we went back to go visit the family.
You saw him when you went back, like, were you like, I kick your ass now?
No, I mean, I don't know if I ever felt that way or anything. I just wanted my sister to be, with her dad and everything, spend time with him. But
I get it.
he did try to. He was like, I'm gonna take her with me. You know what I mean? And I was like, no, that's because at the time I was about 19 years old. So I was like, hell no, my sister ain't going nowhere with you. You know what I mean? And I didn't let that happen. But we spent like a day with him, just hanging out at the park. Or I still remember we went to like a little photo studio where, we took pictures with him and everything like that. And that was the last day we ever saw him, in 2009.
You're like, you go back to visit your home country, and then when you're back there, you want your sister to visit her father, of course, and So y'all are visiting, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take her with me real quick," and you're like, "No, you ain't.
Yeah.
You ain't taking her nowhere, son.
Right.
Let's go to this Photoshop over here and take some photos."
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. So you go over there, and then your mother's she's still drafting for the oil field, or?
Yeah, she was at the time, yes, she was drafting. I mean, she was doing that for 20 something years, maybe 30 years or something like that. So yeah. Even when we moved here, she was doing the same job.
All right. So yeah, that's kind of gets me. How did that happen? Like, so you're there at your grandma's house, you kind of got to deal with these jerks every now and then, but things are kind of going better. Your mom's still going out of town working. Does she just come back from work one day and say, guess what, Agin, we're going to move to America? Or is it like a slowly talk like, hell, we might move to America one day? Or what would you think about that? Or is it just out of the blue? Or how did that happen?
It was so many years after that, when we moved back to, our hometown. I was 7 at the time. So the conversation about us moving to the U.S. didn't come around until about 5 years later.
Oh, wow.
You know
You're
what I
12?
mean? Yeah, I was 12. So, yeah, my mom would mention it, you know what I mean? That she's always wanted to take us to the U.S. and everything like that. So, yeah, she told us one day, and I was 12, and I was terrified. It's like,
when you say she mentioned it, so like from time to time, she was always like, I want to take you to the U.S. I'm going to take you. Has she been to the U.S. at that point, or was she just one of something that she wanted to do?
yeah, she's been here once before. She's kind of been everywhere. She's worked in London before. You know what I mean? So yeah, she thought we'd definitely have a better life here and everything.
And how does she go about? So I know how my people got here. How do you go about that? I mean, did she get some kind of work visas, or did she say how did that happen? I don't know what that process is like for you, or what Tell me about that.
So we just came here as tourists, and came for the summer and just never went back.
That's the same way my people got here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then did she have a job? Did you know somebody, or?
No, she didn't have a job at the time. So, like, from the time I was 7, she ended up divorcing my sister's dad. After so many years, she started dating this American guy. You know what I mean? For a few years, and then he was saying, you should move out here and everything like that. So that's what happened. We came out here. He brought us, helped bring us over there as tourists, and that's how we ended up here. You know what I mean? After so many years, she ended up marrying him while we were here, and that's what happened. And it was, I'm glad to be here.
After all that, right?
Yeah.
And then to think though, like, so you go from there to a little small country town in Wyoming, which was, as far as the urban aspect of it, I don't know what kind of representation of, I don't know if you got the redneck cowboy reputation of America for your first piece, or was that it, or?
Yeah, that's how it was. I didn't really expect it to be like that, because I didn't really see pictures of the town or anything. When we first landed here, landed in Salt Lake City. Pretty big city. So I'm
Yeah, it's
thinking,
huge.
oh wow, this is a pretty big city. You know what I mean? But we just kept driving and driving for like an hour. I'm like, where are we going? And it was dark, so I didn't exactly know where we were. You know what I mean? I was sick too from the plane rides.
What was the plane ride like?
Oh, it was for me it was really hard because I had like motion sickness.
Oh,
So if I was in the car for a long period of time or anything, I would just start throwing up.
yeah.
So for me, it was hard just because I think we got on like 3 different planes, and the
Wow.
longest was at least 12 hours, maybe 11, somewhere on there. And I was I was throwing up the whole time. I
Oh
couldn't
my
eat
God.
nothing, and it was hard. So like when we landed here, just the car ride was making me sick too, riding for an hour, hour and a half, and yeah, it was bad. I still remember just
Was the is riding? This is a stupid question, I know, but is riding in the roads like, was it different seeing the roads and from where you're from to, and I don't know, do y'all drive on the opposite side, or what was that like?
yeah, it was different just because the roads are like paved roads. Where I'm from, it's not like that. It's like bumps. You know what I mean? It's just dirt roads everywhere. So it was definitely different, and it was kind of nice. You know what I mean?
Like, oh, this is
Yeah,
smooth.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, it was different. It took me a while to kind of get used to the food and everything like that too. You know what I mean? Um, so
So you come in at nighttime. You're driving for like an hour. Your first, was it? It must have been like daytime a little bit, maybe evening, and you see the city of Salt Lake, which is a
yeah,
beautiful city. So you see this great big city, and you're like, oh, that's nice, And then you start seeing the city in the rear view, and you're like, hey, where's that nice city going? And then it becomes dark time, and you get to your destination, and um, I'm sure the house or the architecture of the house, you walk in, it probably looks foreign to
yeah,
you.
completely different.
Yeah, so you're probably like, what the hell? And then so then you go to bed at that night, and then you get up and then you walk out in the morning, and you see the is it a neighborhood here, or is it all like country? Like, what is it?
I mean, it was a neighborhood, but it was more a little bit outside the city.
Yeah,
So it was on top of a hill, and you got some neighbors, not too close by, like what I mean, a little bit of ways,
yeah,
but it was yeah, on top of a hill, and
yeah. So you
I
walk out
guess
and you're like, this don't look
yeah,
nothing like where I'm from.
you
Did it
walk out
feel
there.
like super foreign? Is what I'm.
It did, yeah,
Yeah.
and I still remember I would just wake up and kind of just walk around and explore a little bit. You know what I mean? And just I thought it was pretty cool. I was pretty happy. You know what I mean? Um, just because we came like at the start of like the summer. You know what I mean? So I was like, man, I'm gonna hang out during the summertime. I don't have to worry about school right now. You know,
How was the the food's different? So where did you go first? I have a friend who is from Cuba, I think, and he was telling me when he first moved here, they stopped to get something to eat at McDonald's, and when he ate it, he threw up. So, like he said, it tasted horrible to him. But how was what kind of experience is that? What did you have? Who cooked for you first, or what was that like?
I the first meal that I had here was Domino's pizza.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
and I didn't like it. You know,
what? You don't like no
yeah,
Domino's, son?
I didn't like it, and it was just different. I wasn't used to eating pizza ever. You know what I mean? Never had pizza until um, when we would travel to Istanbul when I was a kid, to
Uh,
Turkey. So that was the first place where I had Domino's pizza. So when I came here, I was like, oh, it's gonna be like that. I don't like it. You know,
but it's not.
Yeah,
It's different.
it was different,
Yeah.
but I still wasn't a fan of it, you know. And I remember after that, like trying to eat a hot dog, and I was like, man, this is weird. This is gross. You know what I mean? And I always like tried different foods, even like cereal.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't like cereal at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just different because, you know, where I'm from, you drink tea every day, 3 times a day, you know, and you eat it
really?
with bread and, you know, everything that, you know, your family cooks, and it's
Kind of tea, just came from Kentucky. You got sweet tea up there. Or what kind of tea y'all drinking over there?
I mean, you can make your tea sweet, you know, but it was just, you know, tea with some milk in it, and that's what you drink, you know, and eat whatever you got, you know. And yeah, it was definitely different, you know. The food kind of took me some time, and it was took me some time for sure.
Well, so after you get here and you're adjusting to the culture, and don't really like the food, you're in real rural part of Wyoming. So, America is such a big landscape. There's so many. You can go from Colorado or Kentucky or New York or whatever and experience completely different cultures and scenery and whatnot. But you ended up in Wyoming of all places, and so you're out there and you're kind of you're liking it. It was good. The food's not too good, but it was good. And so you're there during the summer. So you have to eventually start school. Were you speaking English by this time, or how long did it take you to learn English?
No, I wasn't speaking English at all, really. I just kind of knew some small things, hi, bye type stuff. You know what I mean? And I would say it took me maybe 6 months to a year to kind of communicate, and start understanding things. But I mean, learning English took me a long time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Even after I went through middle school, high school, I'd be pronouncing things completely different, wording things completely different, and it was definitely, a culture shock for me.
Yeah.
And that would be my third language that I would know.
Wow.
Because I speak Kazakh and Russian, so growing up, we speak two languages at the same time.
Throw a third in there on me.
So throwing a third one in there was hard, man, and I'm lucky I know it.
So you go through the summer and you start school, public school.
Public school, yeah.
So you start public school in America, and your English is basically hi and bye.
Pretty much.
And you're in a little small town, and I'm pretty sure they didn't have any Kazakh translators there, or were you? I guess probably the only person from there in your whole school, I presume, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, how did you communicate? Like you're in the class and the teacher's teaching about George Washington, and you don't know what the hell they're saying. Like, how did that happen? How did you even pass your classes? Like, what was that?
Man, they had this lady. I wish I remember her name. She helped me out a lot. She she would sit there and try to explain the best way she could. Like, she would almost go to every other class, not with me, but with other students. But whenever she was, like, for instance, I might end up where she is, I would sit there when they're teaching something. I would just be staring at the space like, what's going on,
Yeah, I can bet.
So she would try to explain things a little bit.
Yeah.
And she helped me out a lot.
Yeah, that's good. So you're just sitting in class, and she might as well be Charlie Brown,
Yeah.
and that as they pass you.
I mean, I don't know how, but yeah, I did pass all my
Yeah,
classes,
yeah,
even though it was hard. My grades weren't the best. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
I ended up passing everything.
And at home, so your mother's so my mother is Hispanic. She growing up before or when I was younger, and she first got with my stepfather. We spoke more Spanish in the house than after she got with my stepfather because he didn't speak Spanish. So, what was your household like? Is your mother talking to you in Kazakh and to her husband in English, or are y'all all just trying to talk English, or how is that working out? Mixing his culture with your mother's culture.
Yeah, my mom knew English for a long time. So she would translate things for me. She'd be speaking Kazakh and Russian to us, and speaking English as well. So my mom definitely helped me out a lot too. I watched a lot of movies. Movies really helped me learn English. I'd watch movies and um, ask my mom, "What does this mean? What does this mean?" And she would translate it for me. She would teach me. So that's kind of how it was. At the same time, I would learn a lot from kids. You know what I mean? They'd be saying something, and it would get stuck in my head. I would go home, ask my mom, "Hey, this kid said this. What does
Oh
that
my
mean?"
God, it could end up bad.
Oh, I'm sure there were some bad things. You know what I mean? But that's kind of how I learned.
Do you remember the first friend you made?
I don't honestly.
I'm gonna go ahead and apologize on your behalf. It's for the friend who came up to you and
Oh,
always talks about you right now. I have a friend from D. I made his friend when he first moved here. You don't even know his name. So I'm gonna apologize. No, all joking aside. Do you remember when you started making friends, or you
yeah, I
remember
do
that?
remember. That summer when I came, um, my mom signed me up to play soccer. One of those organized small leagues or whatever they're called.
Yeah, Little League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I started getting to know some people. You
Okay.
know, and nobody knew how to pronounce my name or anything. And one of the kids there, he just one day was like, "Agin," you know what I mean? Like he wanted me to pass him the ball. He's like, "Agin, Agin," and
Yeah.
that like stuck with me. And I was like, went home, told my mom, I was like, I think I'm gonna go by Agin. You know what I mean? That's how.
Easier for people here can't say my name, mom, so I got to
Yeah,
make it easier for them.
exactly.
And
Yeah, and that's kind of where all that started. You know what I mean?
that's how Aiken was born.
Yeah.
Oh man! So because before then, you were
Agin.
you were Iran.
Yeah.
All right. So you're here. You come to America. You finally start school. You start school with only hi and hello. Luckily there's a teacher aide or somebody there who's helping you as much as they can. You're struggling, but you pass getting through school. Your mom put you in a little league soccer. You start making friends. When do you this there's a point coming in your life where you're going through this where like the transition completed. Like I'm a typical teenager in America. Like, does that ever happen?
That probably started happening, once I started hitting high school. You know what I mean?
Were you
When I,
speaking good? I mean, I remember you saying that you weren't speaking the best English at this time, but were you speaking? You were communicating pretty good, and you had a bunch of friends by that time.
yeah, I had quite a bit of friends going into high school and met a lot of friends in high school too. And, I was speaking pretty decent English, still was learning how to pronounce, how to put sentences together, but I spoke good English. Yeah.
And so, if I went back in time, or I went back to some of your high school acquaintances, and I asked, what kind of a guy was Agin in high school? What are they going to tell me? They're going to tell me he was a jock, he was a bully, or he was a nerd, or how would they describe Agin? Who was Agin in high school?
I mean, I was kind of a wild kid. You know what I mean? Was at the skate park all the time, riding BMX bikes, and you know how skaters are too at the skate park.
Yes.
Crazy kids. You know what I
getting
mean?
in fights, hitting each other with skateboards.
Exactly. So, definitely learned a lot of bad habits there. And yeah, I was a pretty wild kid, man.
So if you had to tell us a story about you being in high school, what kind of story would describe you in high school? And I can go first. I'll just tell you, when I was in high school, which I didn't only go to high school too much. I only made it to 7th or 8th grade, but I did try to go to high school one time. And when I went to high school, I beat up my principal. So that tells you what kind of a kid I was in high school. So what is a story of you and how you were in high school?
Man, I was somebody that would, skip school all the time, just not do the best in all my classes.
Yeah. You have a story of you skipping school, or how would that work out?
Yeah, me and one of my friends, his name is Casey. Me and this dude would skip school all the time, and he didn't live too far away from the school. You know what I mean? So we would go over there. We would eat some lunch, play some Madden. You know what I mean? And just kind of mess around, then go back to school later. You know what I mean?
You go back to school?
Yeah, we would go back and just bullshit with some people. And that probably started happening, a year or two going into high school, and just being a wild kid, man. Like, you know how kids are in high school, brutal to each other, talking.
Were you fighting and stuff?
No, I didn't fight. I've probably only been in a couple of fights here. It's not like back home where, you're always fighting with people. You're always getting into things like that. But here it was different, just watching people, just watching people growing up and everything here was completely different. You know what I mean? So kids are they're free. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
free to talk shit to each other and get away with it. Where I'm from, it's not like that. You talk shit, you're getting your ass kicked.
Heard to back it up.
Yeah, you're gonna be fighting, and kids here don't have to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I grew up selling bread and bringing water to the house, carrying buckets of water from, and it was definitely it was different.
So those are some of the what other kind of differences? So now that you were here for a while and you've been here, you're an American and stuff. What kind of a difference is it? What are some of the main differences? That is one of or a couple of the differences that you name. Is a lot of the kids here are privileges. They don't are held to the same accountability as back home where you're from. And another difference is you start working from a way earlier age than here. You can't. Some kids go all into their 20s, without working. So that's another difference. What are some of the other differences from between here in America?
Some of the other differences, I would say, just being able to, have like a freedom of speech. You know what I mean?
Oh wow.
Do
you not have freedom of speech?
I mean, you do to a certain point. At the same time, you can't really say too much. You never know what might happen to your family or to you. So over here, you start seeing kids talking back to the teachers, saying crazy things. Over there,
we already know that's not happening over there. You might get stood up in front of the class.
Exactly.
Get your butt kicked.
Just walking from class to class, I remember, I'd be lost because I'm not used to going from one class to another. One period ends, you go to the next one. So I'd
Yeah.
be lost in the school, like walking
You'll
around.
have 7 different teachers.
Yeah,
or 8
exactly.
different teachers. Yeah.
And just the education and everything. I mean, I learned a lot here. You
Yeah.
know, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I, didn't go through all those things in school and everything like that. Just the lifestyle
Yeah.
is completely different. You know what I mean? Definitely a culture shock.
Free. You're just
Yeah,
free.
you're free. You're able to do what you want. You can go play soccer in the streets without being scared of kids from the other neighborhood pulling up.
All right, back at you with C-Rod's Tell Me Your Story podcast. I'm your host, C-Rod. I'm here with my guest, Agin
Kazbai,
Kazbai.
you got it right this time.
I've been butchering his name for this whole podcast, but it's okay because he has a wonderful, excellent story, and I'm so glad I've been able to share it with you. For those of you who are just tuning in, Agin is from Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan,
I'm so
right?
I'm so bad with my vocabulary. I don't know, guys. I do my best, but I'm really bad. So I'm sorry that I butchered everything that it's hard to pronounce. But anyways, we're just talking to him about his journey from the desert, basically, to being a successful, media production entrepreneur. And on his journey, he's for just a quick recap for those of you who are just starting to come in. He was born in Russia, smuggled out of a Russian hospital at 10 months years old. Smuggled out of a Russian hospital at 10 months old. Moved to his hometown. Lived in his hometown for a little while until moving in with his step grandparents who neglected him to unbelievable amounts. Lived outside, slept on benches, and did all types of things to survive. Was stuck into a mud house with an alcoholic woman who laid on the floor like a corpse every day as he tended animals and had to struggle for food. And now he's found himself in the best country on this earth, and he's going to high school. And he's gone through high school. He's learned English. He's skipping school just like every other teenage American kid. So he's made his full transition into a teenage American kid, and he's skipping school. And now he's moving out. And you did graduate high school, right?
I did graduate barely.
What year did you graduate?
2008.
So in 2008 you graduated. What passions and hobbies have you picked up since you graduated?
I mean, I have different passions. Passions about life or just passions about hobbies or the things I want to do. When it comes to hobbies and my career and everything like that, just doing media production. I learned a lot with making videos and filming sports as well.
Yeah. What I mean is, what I'm asking is like, so on a typical, do you work Monday through Friday, off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or do you work 7 days a week? Or
it's always different. 7 days a week,
always got. I get it.
Yeah.
But when you spend your personal time, what do you do in your personal time? Like, what do you go catch a movie? Do you like watching movies? Do you go jogging? Like, what do you do in your personal time? Like, if I was to say, hey, Agin, what are you doing tomorrow? And you're like, oh, my schedule's open. And I said, hey, take me, let's go do something. What would we do?
We would definitely be outside in the nature, walking and, if I know you're an MMA guy, so we'd probably be jogging. You know, you probably doing some front kicks or something like that. But definitely being outside. You know, being at the lake, going paddleboarding. You know, riding bikes and.
You're a nature guy.
Nature guy for sure. You know, just love the fresh air, being outside the city a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, that's definitely a big passion of mine.
You ever do any camping?
I love camping. Yeah, I
Oh yeah.
take a few days camping and going fishing, and you know, just enjoying the nature, enjoying Mother Nature. You know, and it's beautiful out here in Colorado. And we got to take advantage of that. I think we take it for granted.
Something I always, when you go camping or you go into nature, and something that you forget that there's out there is, and you look into the sky and you see the millions, tremendous amount of stars above your head that you just don't see in the city. You know, I used, you know, when I was making deliveries way out in the middle of nowhere, and I would have to use a bathroom or something, and I would get out the work van, and I would look up in the sky, and I would see all these stars, you know. And growing up in like the city and the urban areas, you forget there's stars out there. Have you ever gone camping and looked up in the sky and thought to yourself, man, about your life and seen all the stars and enjoyed that part of nature?
Yeah, that's a big thing to think about. You know what I mean? It's pretty amazing that you know things like that exist. You know what I mean? It's beautiful, and just beautiful how this world was created. You know what I mean? So definitely being outside and enjoying that. I think everybody needs to do that. You know what I mean? A lot of us take that for granted. You know, there's people who've been here in Denver, who've born and lived their whole lives, who've never been out there, never been camping, never enjoyed.
Been out into the Rocky Mountains. Or how did you end up in Denver from Wyoming?
Well, I from Wyoming. I lived in Utah. Like, you know, I've spent a lot of time there, and started filming college and high school sports in Salt Lake City, and just fell in love with doing that, and decided, you know, I've always wanted to come out to Colorado, and just wanted to make a move out here. Yeah. So worked on that for some years, and just came out here one day, you know, on a weekend, drove out here, stayed at a Motel 6, and got up in the morning, went to Metro State University, signed up for school, walked right across the street to the Pepsi Center, now it's called the Ball Arena, and got a job that same day as a supervisor for one of the companies in there, and the manager was really cool. So she was like, "Hey, I'll give you a month. You'll have this position, you know. Let me know when you move out here." And she stayed in touch with me throughout that whole month. You know, I actually learned a lot from her. She opened up a lot of doors for me. Met a lot of, you know, athletes, basketball players, artists, and everything like that. So I've really fell in love with the entertainment. You know, just being around people like that. Just fell in love with it. Just went to school full time, working 2-3 jobs, you know, and just been out here ever since. Been out here for about 10 years now, you know, and I love it out here. Definitely a life-changing experience, you know what I mean? So I've lived all over, you know, just around the world, just out here, you know what I mean? So it's definitely a beautiful experience, beautiful journey that I've had, you know what I mean? Meeting a lot of people, a lot of connections, and you know, just had a big passion for media production, and that's where it all started.
That's how you got into the adventure that you're into now. So you're here in Denver. Brings me to my next question, which you kind of explained. You started in Salt Lake City in media production?
Yeah, not necessarily media production, but just working as a camera operator. Just filming different types of sports, and then after that, I kind of started researching, see what kind of schools I can get into. Thought about going to school out there, but at the same time, I wanted a different lifestyle. Different vibe, different
What's it like
culture.
in Salt Lake City? I've never been to that there before.
It's different, man. I mean, compared to here, it's definitely different. It's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
The city is right in the middle of the mountains, so it's amazing there. Just it just wasn't my vibe. The culture's completely different. You know, I don't want to say it, but it seems like everything's like ran by the church there. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
it's very religious.
Very religious. I mean, I have nothing against religion or anything like
Yeah,
that, but there it's different. You know what I mean? So
I get what you're saying.
it's difficult to find jobs. You know, so I just I wanted to be somewhere where it's more you have more freedom. You're able to create more opportunities for yourself. So.
So you were on the border of when you first came here. You came kind of on the border of Wyoming and Utah, correct?
Yeah,
So
exactly on the
you weren't
border.
far from Salt Lake City.
Yeah,
It's like moving just to the city over, and so you moved to Salt Lake City, and you're like, this isn't really my cup of tea, and I'm gonna look for somewhere else. And so you decide, I'm gonna check out Denver, and then you come and you get a Motel 6, and you walk over to the Pepsi. What's it called now?
it's called the Ball Arena now.
The Ball Arena.
Yeah,
So you
right.
go over to the Ball Arena, aka the Pepsi Center, and
Exactly.
you get a job creating media already, or what kind of job were you doing?
Doing a supervisor position for a facility service company inside there. So we pretty much took care of the whole facility. You know what I mean? Everything from setting up for events to breaking down, and just taking care of the whole building basically. So I had access everywhere to that building, so I was able to be around everything, different types of um, operations that runs in there, and
Different events.
yeah, and that's kind of where I learned to be around more people, managing more people. You know what I mean? And that's how it all started. And then I just after a while, got a job at Amazon, started doing that, ended up quitting at the Pepsi Center, and that's where pretty much my journey began. Ended up working there for a long time, and learned a lot for sure. You know what I mean? Just being around a lot of people, managing a lot of people. I learned to be more humble. Just creating a good culture and just being able to have a passion to encourage people around you. You know what I mean? Motivate people around you, and it's definitely helped my life. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful for that opportunity.
So, the same time that you came down here and you're at Motel 6, you also go to MSU and enroll in school for media production.
Exactly.
And so you're going to school, you're managing, you're working at the Amazon, you're learning supervising. Um, how did you decide to take your to the next level? Like, did you just start? Was it like wedding videos? Were you just doing photos for the people who are interested in getting in media production? Um, what did you do to make yourself starting being learning more about the production business, or did you just go to school, finish school, and then go into the next step? Was it social media marketing, or what worked for you?
Well, how it all started was for one of our school projects. We had to make a promotional video for a company, organization, whatever. So our first video that we made was for Factory X. The gym. So you gave me the opportunity. You talked to your coach, and that's kind of where it all started. We ended up having the best project, in our class, and met a lot of people there, and kind of just started from there. You know, from doing that to making music videos, to making promotional videos, to shooting product videos, doing photography. I've never done anything like weddings or anything like that. Always done live events. Recently worked at a one championship event for a few days, and just kind of went from there. I travel everywhere, doing different videos, and that's kind of how everything's been going.
It's pretty awesome that in this time that it's kind of opened up a market for younger people like yourself that wasn't there maybe the past generation. There's everybody wants to get their videos up and post different things, and probably opened up a whole. I'm not saying the industry wasn't there. I'm just saying it probably grew immensely these last decade or so. Have you witnessed any of the growth in your industry?
Yeah, it's gotten really big. I mean, all these young guys are the ones who are the most creative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kids who are like 15, 16-year-olds are making
Wow.
some of the most creative videos out there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's getting really big. So you got to stay on top of your game all the time, because there's somebody better than you out there right now doing better stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, man, you gotta stay on your toes.
Yeah.
Hear that, guys? You gotta stay on your toes in the media game. If you want to be in this, you gotta stay on your toes. Something that I've said this on a previous episode, but I'm gonna say it again, and you could tell me if you agree. Which most likely I know you agree. But whenever you get into these things, it's it's all in or nothing. You gotta if you're gonna do something, you gotta do it. You gotta work hard at it, or because if you work half-ass at it, you're gonna get some half-ass results. Is that how you approached when you went into chasing your goals?
Yeah, that's how you got to approach it. Otherwise you're not going to get anywhere. I mean, it's kind of like that with everything that you do, even the smallest things in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to wake up at 4 a.m, you got to get your ass up, if you want to exercise or anything you want to do. So it definitely, you got to do it, or you're going to fall behind. You know what I mean?
I agree. So what kind of are you working on any projects right now? What kind of goals, or what do you have planned for the future?
I'm working on some projects right now for development business, with building homes and things like that, creating some videos for them. So that's what I'm focused on right now. And just pretty much any type of work that might come my way. I pretty much take anything. So I've been doing some product shoots for one of the companies that I work with, creating content for their website, so I think that, it's just going to keep adding on. Small little projects will end up turning into big projects.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes people don't realize this, but something that I learned in the many endeavors that I have been in life is sometimes small money's big money. Sometimes big money's small money.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know what most people think is big money, but when you might make $1 million, but if you're paying out $950,000 to get that $1 million, then that big money's small money. And if you make $50,000 and you're only paying out $10,000 to make that $50,000, then your small money's big money. So there's a little bit of something you could take to the bank for your youngsters. Put that triple OG knowledge on you. So how does people check out your media? How do they, and if they want to book you, or and you mentioned you do travel, so if you do want to book Agin, and you doesn't matter where you're at. How would they get a hold of you?
So we have a company called 303 Media Company. So if you go on the website, you can request information, send us an email, try to book, you know what I mean? We're also, you can check out our Instagram, or direct message me on my Instagram as well, and we'll get people going.
Yeah, what's y'all's Instagram?
303 Media.
Oh,
CO.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's the same as the website.
Yep.
Okay.
And then my personal one is Agin Kazbai. So, we a lot of times we don't get new requests or anything like that. We pretty much have been able to land contracts with the people that we work around with.
Yeah.
And just getting contacts from other people. People are referring us. That's what's helped us the most.
Y'all do music videos and
yeah,
all types of live events.
Yeah, we can do music videos, live events, anything like that. We kind of just been all around. You know what I mean? I have a partner named Alex, that very creative guy. Currently he's been doing some work for custom trucking business. So he's been doing that full time. So we kind of just take on anything that comes our way.
All right, well, it's nice talking to you, Agin. So, if you listen to his story and you heard what he said, I'm just glad that he was able to go through that and become such a successful person. He has a tremendous spirit to him. When you talk to him and when you're around him, you could tell that there's more to him, and the reason why is because he was able to go through what he went through and become a better person. And something that people here don't realize is, or anywhere, or maybe it's just the younger generation, I don't know, or maybe I'm just ranting, but something that people don't realize is adversity is what makes a man. Man have to have adversity. You can't take a boy and pamper him his whole life, and then when he grows up and he's 25, 26, and expect him to be a man. No, he's going to be a spoiled child, because adversity makes a man. There's been many times where I've been in hard situations, where I've felt like the whole world's on me, where I felt like my whole chest and back was going to collapse from the pressure that's been putting on me. But I know those are the times where I truly found myself, where I've truly seen who I was, what I was made of, and what kind of person I am. Because you could talk all the talk you want to talk, but when you're 7 years old and you're sleeping on a picnic bench, getting eaten up by mosquitoes, then you grow up and you change your whole life, then you know what it takes to actually change your life, and you know what you don't want to go back to. You know what you don't want to deal with. You know what you don't want your children to deal with. But when you're got your mom folding your clothes at 25 years old, cleaning your room and making your lunch, then you are still a boy. You are not a man. That's a little bit of the problem that's going on with this nowadays. But I'm just ranting now. Like I said before, it was wonderful talking to our guest, Agin. Make sure you click his link and check out his webpage. And remember, the same webpage is the same name for their Instagram. Direct message him if you want to get a hold of him. Remember to check out our Instagram. Remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube page. Remember to check out our Patreon, and any donations, like I said before, to help push these stories is appreciated. And remember, if you want to contact us, you can contact us at Crod, Tell Me Your Story Podcast, with the S in between the D and the C. That's Crod, Tell Me Your Story Podcast, with the S in between the D and the C. And if you have a legit story, something that we want to hear, something that you want to tell the world, something that is going to change somebody's life somewhere, we don't care if you got 1 subscriber. I don't care if you got 0 subscribers. Come tell me your story. Send it to us. but it has to be documented. It has to have proof. We're not taking on wise tales, but send us your story. Again, C-Rod, Tell Me Your Story podcast with the S in between the C, the D and the C at gmail.com. But send us your story. And if you're willing to come to the Denver area and you want to put your story out there and you have the proof, we'll give you a platform to do it, because we're here to bring stories that are going to inspire people, stories that are going to intrigue your ear and keep you busy throughout your workday, or whenever it is you're listening through at the gym, whenever it is you're listening to us. We're going to bring you them stories. We're going to bring the world of stories, and we're going to talk to anybody. I don't care who you are or what you're doing. As long as you're not promoting hate, you have a platform here. This is C-Rod at the Tell Me Your Story podcast. I'll talk to you next time. I'm out.